There are love songs about reunion. There are love songs about desire. And then there are love songs about survival. Infinity is not a song about getting someone back. It is not even a song about hoping they will return. It is a song about what the psyche does when love must be carried instead of lived. So this is an interpretation of the One Direction song Infinity through two psychoanalytic lenses that explain why this song feels so suspended, so tender, and yet so quietly devastating. Object relations theory, particularly the work of Donald Winnicott, and containment theory, developed by Wilfred Bion. Through those two lenses, these frameworks may help us show us why the lyrics in Infinity is not about longing for contact. It's about maintaining psychic continuity when contact is impossible. Let's start with object relations. So, in object relations, love is not defined by proximity. It is defined by whether the loved object can be held internally without the self collapsing. When someone we love becomes inaccessible, emotionally, socially, or structurally, the psyche has two options. It can fragment or it can internalize. Infinity is the sound of internalization succeeding. Listen to the emotional posture of the song. There's no demand. There's no ultimatum. There's no dramatic rupture, actually. Instead, we hear something far more regulated. Kind of like, I don't know where to even start, but I can tell you right now, I'm not going to let you down. That's kind of like a paraphrase of what the lyrics seem to be saying. It's not a plea to another person. This is a reassurance spoken inward. So in Winnicott's terms, the beloved has already become a good internal object, a presence that can be carried but not chased. So the central metaphor of infinity makes this unmistakable. How many nights does it take to count the stars? Stars are not reachable. They cannot be possessed. They don't respond, but they are reliably there. In object relations language, stars function as transitional objects, symbols that bridge external absence and internal continuity. The singer is not asking the stars to come closer. They're saying, I can survive by orienting myself to something that remains constant, even at a distance. Now, that is not fantasy. That's mature psychic adaptation. This is where Winnicott matters. Winnicott believed that emotional health is not about avoiding loss. It's about whether the self can hold love without disintegrating when the environment fails. Infinity is what Winnicott would call a true self solution. There's no false compliance here, no performance, no demand for visibility. The self remains intact by choosing holding over possession. Now let's layer in Bion. So Wilfred Bion was concerned with what happens to feelings that have nowhere to go. He believed that emotional survival depends on containment, the ability to hold raw affect without discharging it destructively. So in Infinity, containment is happening internally. Listen closely to kind of the line. Okay, let me find that line. If you really listen to the words in Infinity, it's pretty poignant, like many One Direction songs are. It's sort of like on the first glance, you would think it was a plea. But the more you listen to it, and then the more you know the One Direction history and maybe what was going on at the time that it was written, you have a different read. So let's see, what does he say? How many nights does it take to count the stars? That's the time it would take to fix my heart. Oh, baby, I was there for you. All I ever wanted was the truth. How many nights have you wished someone would stay? lie awake only hoping they're okay. I never counted all of mine. If I tried, I know it would feel like infinity. Eyes can't shine unless there's something burning bright behind. Since you went away, there's nothing left in mine. I feel myself running out of time. And now I'm one step closer to being two steps far from you. When everybody wants you, everybody wants you. And then, there's that last performance of One Direction where when Harry's saying, "All I ever wanted was the truth." If you watch it, it's in the performance where he's wearing that really colorful kind of red background, floral, embroidered suit. And his hair is when he still has the long hair, and he's like his expression is very pleading, and it says so much more when he sang it that way. And there's many interpretations for that, but this is crucial because it does not say come back. It does not say choose me. It does not say acknowledge me. It says, I need help regulating this feeling, but I'm not asking you to fix it. That is Bionian containment at its most sophisticated. The song itself becomes the container. Music replaces contact, language replaces action, and rhythm replaces response. The psyche says, I will metabolize this myself. And then this is kind of why infinity feels like suspended love. The song never resolves because resolution would require external change. Instead, it stabilizes. Bion would say, the emotional experience has been transformed from raw, overwhelming affect into something thinkable, bearable, and held. Something about the song is why it doesn't crescendo into despair despite the initial read, despite the message, despite kind of what it's describing in its own very own lyrics, right? It's because it levels out. And then this brings us to the word infinity. So infinity does not mean forever together. It means forever intact. It means that the object will not be destroyed by absence. The self will not be destroyed by longing. The bond can survive without enactment. And this is a profoundly psychoanalytic idea. So what infinity is not doing is just as important. It is not demanding recognition or collapsing into fantasy or splitting the object into good and bad. There's no rage here. There is grief, but it is contained grief, the kind that allows a person to keep living. Clinically, we might say this. Infinity represents a psychic position where love has been internalized successfully, but at a cost. The cost is silence. The cost is distance. The cost is postponement. But the self remains whole. And that's why the song feels so different from protest songs about hidden love. Because protest comes later. It's when containment fails. Infinity exists at the moment before that failure. The moment where the psyche says, I can do this. I can carry you. I can survive this quietly. So what is the final synthesis? Through an object relations lens, infinity is about internalized love without possession. Through Bion's lens, it is about containment without contact. Together they reveal a song that is not romantic in a conventional sense, but psychically extraordinary. It's as if the sound of a self choosing wholeness over collapse. Infinity is not about how long love lasts. It's about whether the self can last while loving. So that's my read on infinity, again, through a psychoanalytic interpretation. I am curious, what do you all think? What is your take on infinity? I initially saw the performance of infinity where the live one where Harry was singing, all I ever wanted was the truth, and he's pleading. I really took that as a echo cry for the impact of having been closeted and the suppression of Larry Stylinson and the heteronormative marketing that dominated their launch as a band. And I still stand on that one. But I will say that as beautifully interpretive as Bion and Winnicott's concepts are applied to a potential interpretation of the song Infinity, because we can talk to the actual songwriters and the band itself, and if they tell us Infinity was about something completely different, I can totally get that. But I still think Infinity harkens so strongly to Larry Stylinson and even to Zium, because I have not examined Zium. I think I'm still so into the Larry train that it's very hard for me to talk about Zium. But I think also talking about Zium is hard because I do think that we don't know as much as we should know as fans as to the negligence of the hotel. I'm not making any accusations. I just think that the whole thing is still very strange on how that whole thing went down, and we should never have lost Liam. But I also see how, you saw Zane wearing the plaid shirt that Liam, the red and black plaid shirt that Liam wore. Zane wore it in a performance shortly after that, and that was close in time to when Liam and Louis apparently reunited in LA at a Zane concert. But hard to talk about Zium mainly because Liam's gone, and the thought that I do think that there was definitely closeting happening with Zayn and Liam. A lot of boy band members are bisexual or gay. I think people don't seem to want to believe that, but it's statistically true. Ask Lance Bass. I think Lance Bass had the statistic that 3 out of 4 boy band members are like gay or fluid, and so that's why I believe that it's totally possible, if not probably true, that we had the only straight guy in the band was Niall and his guitar. And it's hard to talk about Zia mainly because Zayn is a widow, basically. A widow who cannot mourn publicly. And I think that if anything, I can see why Louis and Zayn reconnected, because they understood what was going on. And I think Louis, if anyone, could understand what was going on for Zayn without Liam. So that said, that's Infinity. I think there's so many unpublished One Direction songs I wish would actually be published, because they are so much better than sometimes the published ones.